All right, let's transition to the lecture on consciousness or arousal states. You can say it in different ways. Arousal states is your different levels of arousal during the day, from being completely unconscious during your sleeping to being extremely wide awake, engaged in some, cognitive activity. These can also be called states of consciousness. Okay, so if we think of consciousness as a continuum where we have high levels, medium levels, and low levels of consciousness, it's probably a good way to think about it. So we'll start with this sort of generic view of high, middle, and minimal or no level of awareness. So high levels of awareness involve something that's called controlled processes. This is where you have focused attention. Notice this woman up here. She's like a scientist of some kind. She's intently reading or looking at her data, trying to understand what's going on. She has focused attention. You might fall into this category when you're doing some intense, statistical homework or something like that, where you really need to stay focused to keep your mental faculties aligned so that you can, accomplish your mental task. So these are called controlled processes. Okay? It might be hard to interrupt her at this point because she's focused. Now, some of us do these focus processes when we're just watching a good movie or listening to music or something like that, watching the final 2 minutes of a sporting event or something that's exciting. Anyway, these are controlled processes, high levels of awareness. A sort of mid-range level of awareness is called middle level of awareness, has a couple processes that we can talk about. First of all, the one that's really common to all of us is something called automatic processes. These are things we pick up on, we learn, and we adapt very quickly to. For instance, go back to when you were 15 and a half and got your driver's learner's permit. It was very awkward getting behind the wheel of a big car the first time, right? Wasn't sure what the brake is or the gas. You were a little nervous. And look at you now, right? You have automatic process. You can hop in that car and drive down the road while you're doing a bunch of different things. So this is kind of a multitasking example where she's on the computer, she's on the phone, she's taking care of her kid. She's managing them all fairly well, even though multitasking usually means you do a bunch of stuff poorly at the same time. But these are automatic processes, right? If you ever gotten in your automobile just to buzz down to the store to pick something up, but instead you're on your way to school or to work, right? Because you just spaced out and you're like, oh no, what am I doing? I was just going to get some milk. Right? That's automatic processes when they kick in. Here's another example, this daydreaming. Look at that. Isn't that fantastic photo? It's raining outside. She just wants to go outside and play basketball. She probably should be listening to the teacher. I don't know why she's sitting on the radiator. But she has sort of a dual consciousness going here. She's living in this real world, yet she's daydreaming about living in this other world. So this is kind of a middle level of awareness. You're not fully aware and focused. You have this duality of focus, middle level of awareness. And then finally, we have minimal or no awareness. And this is where it starts to get a little sketchy as to the scientific basis of some of Freudian theory. Do we have a subconscious mind? Do we have an unconscious mind? Still really hard to understand. What happens when we're asleep? Can we learn when we sleep? Are we processing information when we sleep? And then what happens when we have some sort of blow to the head or an injury, right? You become knocked unconscious due to a concussion. So the question is still open as to whether we do have this reservoir of unacceptable thoughts, feelings, and memories that are, showing themselves in bizarre ways. They're showing themselves in anxiety and depression and who knows. Okay, there's some evidence to support, early childhood trauma and adult mental health issues, but it's also very difficult to measure scientifically. And of course, when you get a concussion, when you get hit in the head really hard like this young football player, you can actually lose consciousness. Very dangerous sign. So those are generic levels of the states of consciousness along the continuum.